Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating piece of writing that tackles a massive, invisible mental hurdle. We're talking about why starting an online business, especially if you're over 45, can feel, well, so incredibly paralyzing. It's a spot so many of us find ourselves in, right? Standing right on the edge of this exciting opportunity, yet feeling completely unable to just take the leap. We're going to unpack the exact psychology behind this hesitation and see what the source material reveals about finally pushing past it.
Okay, let's dive into this. I'll start when I'm ready. I want you to think for a second about how many times you've whispered that exact phrase to yourself. As the source material points out, it sounds so perfectly reasonable, doesn't it? It feels deeply responsible. It feels safe. But what we're going to explore today is how this seemingly innocent, super sensible phrase actually acts like a trap. It secretly keeps us locked in this endless, comfortable cycle of just waiting.
Section 1. The Sensible Trap. Why waiting feels like the right thing to do. You see, that sensible trap is basically a constant, quiet internal dialogue telling us that we just need a tiny bit more time. We tell ourselves, I just need a little more confidence. It's a pretty heavy realization when you actually stop and think about it. We are essentially tricking ourselves into believing that confidence is just going to magically arrive in the mail one day while we're sitting on the couch. We assume it's this mandatory prerequisite to taking action.
Or we think we need more knowledge. This is a big one. We convince ourselves that taking just one more course or watching just one more tutorial will be the absolute magic key. We tell ourselves, okay, once I finish that next module, the gates of readiness will finally unlock.
And of course, the absolute most common fallback, more money. We tell ourselves that waiting for a bigger financial cushion, or, maybe a sudden inheritance from a long-lost billionaire uncle, is literally the only sensible, mature choice a person can make before kicking off an online business.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. We say to ourselves, maybe after another course, maybe next month. But as the source text accurately points out, next month inevitably turns into another month. And then, suddenly, a whole entire year has slipped completely by without a single real step taken toward your actual goal.
Section 2. The One Simple Lie. Uncovering the Hidden Barrier.
Looking back at the source material, the real barrier keeping you from starting your online business was never your age. It wasn't the complicated technology either. And it certainly wasn't a lack of opportunity out there in the digital world. So we really have to ask the question, what was really holding me back? I want you to just pause and chew on that for a second. If it wasn't age and it wasn't tech, what is the actual invisible barrier keeping you stuck in the starting blocks?
Well, here is the answer exactly as it's laid out in the text. It's one simple lie, believing that confidence comes before action. This is the hard truth that literally nobody tells you. We are completely conditioned to think we absolutely must feel confident before we do the thing, but according to the source material, confidence simply does not come first. That right there, that is the illusion keeping you trapped.
Section 3. Action creates the confidence. Reversing the formula for success.
So, the crucial point is, we have to completely reverse this formula. Action comes first. Action is the very thing that actually creates the confidence. The actual path to success looks a bit more like this. Step 1, start without knowing everything. Step 2, make mistakes. Step 3, learn from them. Step 4, improve. The source notes that every single person you admire online, every wildly successful creator or business owner went through this exact sequence. They didn't start with all the answers. The only true secret, the only difference between them and someone who's still waiting, is that they actually started.
The author actually notes that when they finally stopped waiting to feel ready, something profound changed. They wrote, I stopped standing still. Now, the change wasn't magical, okay? It didn't just happen overnight, but every small step taught them something new. Every mistake they made simply made the next step and the next mistake just a little bit easier to handle. Basically, momentum completely replaced stagnation.
Section 4. Your unfair advantage. Why being over 45 is your greatest asset.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it shifts the perspective entirely. If you're in this over 45 demographic, you are not behind. In fact, you are uniquely equipped. You possess this powerful, hard-earned toolkit that younger folks simply do not have yet. Think about it, life experience, patience, problem-solving skills, resilience. The source emphasizes that these exact qualities matter so much more in the long run than, say, knowing how to use every single new piece of software. These are the actual foundational pillars of running a successful business, and you already own them.
Let's think about the sharp contrast between these two. Technology on one hand versus experience on the other. Technology is something that can be learned by anyone, at any time, usually with a quick 20-minute video tutorial. But experience cannot be learned in a weekend crash course. It has to be lived. And that unlearnable value, right there, tips the scales heavily in your favor.
Section 5. The day you begin stepping out of the waiting room. Let's move to and see how this builds. Because to actually use that advantage, we have to step out of the waiting room. The stark reality presented in the text is simply this. If you're waiting until you feel completely 100% ready to start that online business, you may very well still be sitting there waiting an entire year from now. The author states that if there is one single thing they wish someone had told them before starting online, it's that you will never feel completely ready. You become ready by taking the first step. Readiness is just an illusion created by fear. Action is the reality.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly powerful thought from the source text. If this cycle of waiting sounds intimately familiar to you, maybe today doesn't have to be just another day of preparation. Maybe today can simply be the day you begin. So, with all that incredible life experience behind you, what's your first step going to be?